Party's over, Scorpion.
For me, superheroes do not get any bigger than Spider-Man. And I don't mean in terms of size or anything like that. I mean in terms of idolisation. As a kid growing up, I was a massive Spider-Man fan. I would watch the cartoons on a Saturday morning, I would read the comics and the annuals, and I also had loads and loads of Spider-Man toys. So when a good mate of mine told me about this Spider-Man arcade game back in the day, I knew I had to have a shot of it.
Warning, now let this breathe.
Spider-Man the video game was a Sega System 32 game released in 1991 and can be enjoyed by up to 4 players at the same time. The selection of characters is not exactly what I would call amazing. You can of course choose Spider-Man, and the other characters are Black Cat, Submariner and Hawkeye, none of which were very memorable to me as a Spider-Man fan. But I guess Sega paid top dollar for the Spider-Man license, and so needed to save money by licensing some lesser known or less popular characters. Each hero has a unique set of moves and attacks or abilities, which can be used to beat up the bad guys that suited their powers and characteristics, as well as basic attacks and jumps. The object of the game is pretty simple. Spider-Man and his allies must retrieve a mystical artifact first from the Kingpin, then from Doctor Doom. During levels, the game changes from a side-scrolling beat-em-up into a platform game as the camera zooms to a faraway view of the characters in miniature. Later, it zooms back in for the much larger and more detailed characters to continue their brawling. The game was divided into 4 acts, meeting various villains, including Kingpin, Venom and his symbiote clones, Dr. Octopus, Electro, Lizard, Scorpion, Sandman, Green Goblin, Hobgoblin and finally Doctor Doom. High scores are separated by character, so a high score on Spider-Man may not be a high score on Hawkeye or Black Cat.
Dirty trick!
Visually, this game is very good. The graphics are all of an incredibly high standard, with absolutely huge sprites for each of the heroes and the villains, with some of the backgrounds looking like they've been lifted straight from a Marvel comic, which I think adds a nice touch to the look of the game. However, the animation of the heroes is a little bizarre, to say the least. Spider-Man walks with his arms drooped by his side, like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders or something. Or, as someone once described it, Spider-Man walks like a man with 3 kids and a mortgage. This walk is the same for the other heroes as well. During fights, you get these comic style onomatopoeias cropping up as well, which only enhances the comic book style and appearance.
Black cat.
The villains are nicely drawn as well, with Venom, Scorpion and the Green Goblin my personal favourites, but all the rest look great. At certain points in the game, the action zooms out and the game becomes this single plane beat 'em up, with the sprites all reduced in size. And when Venom increases in size at this stage, it looks awesome. Some levels have objects in the foreground like this flame effect, which I think looks rather excellent. And the game has these kind of comic book style cutscenes between levels, which again, I think look awesome and certainly keeps with the comic theme of the game. The sound is of a high quality as well. The music, although quiet, sounds very cartoony from the show, with some of the music being pinched from a previous Sega game, Quartet. The sound effects of the hits and the punches are great, and sound really impactful indeed, but the sounds of the enemies as they get beat does get annoying. They give out this sort of cried whistle, and it does sound very annoying after a while, especially as you hear it loads during the game. The gameplay is a tad disappointing. It's a very basic beat 'em up to say the least. Not that I was bothered when I played it at first, as I was finally playing Spider-Man in a game that didn't involve lots of typing. Anyone that's owned a Commodore 64 will know what I'm talking about there. The basic nature of the combat does make the game very repetitive very quickly, and so a lot of patience and stamina is required to see the game off, which will take about 45 minutes or so, and the challenge is certainly there in the game. When I played this with my mate, he let me use Spider-Man as he knew I was a massive fan, and so I put in my 50p for a go, and for the first few minutes I did have a smile on my face, as I loved laying waste to the hordes of villains in the game, and also was motivated to see how the supervillains would look, and so I did enjoy the game, but it wasn't without its faults in the gameplay department. You may notice you have no life bar, but a life timer, and even when standing about doing nothing, no combat or anything, you will lose life, which is a real swizz, and at 50p a go, it did feel like a bit of a rip-off to me. But did it stop me playing, or even putting in more money to play? Did it hell? I played this on more than a few occasions when I could. Booth's Enterprise in Glasgow had this machine. This was where my mate had discovered it, and every time I was in Booth's, I would have a go if it was available. On one occasion, me and my mate had went into Glasgow to see Universal Soldier at the cinema. The film wasn't scheduled to start for a few hours, but with Booth's Enterprise just 5 minutes down the road, we killed time by heading in there and having a go on this game. This was an incredibly nervy move, as we got really close to beating the game but then realised the movie was about to start, so we left in a hurry to go and see Universal Soldier, which I don't regret, as Universal Soldier was a great movie. Spider-Man the arcade game was a game I never beat in the arcades, but now, thanks to MAME, I was able to play it at home and beat Dr. Doom. And in actual fact, I then realised I was nowhere near beating the game, as you have to face off against Dr. Doom several times. The game was never ported across to anything, which was a shame, as I did think at the time that I would have bought it for my Mega Drive had it come out. It wouldn't have been nothing like the arcade, of course, given it was a System 32 game, but it would still have been nice if Sega had ported it. I guess the game just wasn't popular enough to justify a home port. It wasn't a very successful game for Sega, and I guess it came out at the wrong time, what with the popularity of Street Fighter 2 and numerous Versus clones coming out around that time. Spider-Man the arcade game is a fun game to play, especially with a few mates, and if you have the ability to do so, I recommend it. But there are better beat-em-ups available, such as Streets of Rage 2 in the Mega Drive, but then nothing tops Streets of Rage 2, in my opinion. And that was my look back at Spider-Man the arcade game by Sega. If you liked this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two below about your memories of Spider-Man the arcade game. And a big thank you to all of those who have subscribed and commented on my channel. It really does mean a lot, and I do enjoy reading other people's opinions and memories of games. I do appreciate them all. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.